Hey everyone, welcome to the Wrestling Experience.
Where there is no mention of Raw Underground and nobody notices.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, I was watching the show and I was like, I don't see Shane McMahon just getting all red and sweating profusely. I don't see his bouncer. I don't see anyone fighting on Raw Underground. And it's 10 p.m. and we get no segment.
Honestly, if it wasn't for you mentioning it, I wouldn't have not realized. To me, business as usual for this Raw. No Raw Underground, I don't even notice.
Well, I'm Jazz,
I'm Johnny.
and we are the Wrestling Experience. We're going to be recapping Monday Night Raw, which I don't want to sound like a broken record, was a slog.
And speaking of people getting all purple, Shane McMahon, let's talk about someone else who likes to get purple when they get on the mic. Because how does Raw open?
What a great segue!
Woo! I know. I wrote down that segue. I had it ready.
You were,
Ric Flair
you were
starts
so
Raw.
proud of yourself. Yeah, so we get to see Ric Flair, Big Show, Christian, and HBK.
Wow, you sound a little bit too enthusiastic about Christian.
Oh, sorry. It's
It's just Christian.
it's Christian.
Unfortunately, yes, all four of them are in the ring, and HBK welcomes still your WWE champion, Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre comes out. He looked a certain way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it looked like $1,000,000.
Yeah, exactly. So he just talks about the legends. He says he's happy to be in the ring with the legends. He gives everyone the rub, as they say, and he's ready to move on. And he gets interrupted by Randy Orton, who is via satellite or something, and he's like, "This is not over," and he's gonna get everyone back. He vows to get everyone back, and Drew is kind of ready to move on though, so he's ready to basically issue an open challenge for the WWE title. He's like, "I'm a fighting champion. I'm not in the best condition to be fighting after my ambulance match, but I want to defend my title tonight."
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happens in the opening segment.
So pretty much, Randy Orton, yes, he is on the Titantron. He's in the arena, and he says that, yeah, exactly, like the essentially, it's not over until Randy Orton says that it's over, and Drew McIntyre is like, oh, well, I guess you're going to be begging for a rematch, right? And we kind of see Randy Orton with his suitcase, and he leaves the arena. So he was in the arena and he left, but we all know that's a ruse as to what happens later on in the show. But yes, you're right. Drew McIntyre issues an open challenge, but there's someone that he's never faced for this championship. So that should be quite interesting.
That is an important distinction. So we're safe from the inevitable Dolph Ziggler rematch.
But Dolph Ziggler was kind of involved. But we're going to go to Zelina Vega. She's preparing for her rematch, and she cuts off Kayla, who says that she came up short. And I was like, ooh, is that like a little short joke? And, she basically talks about how Asuka won't be ready for her tonight. Asuka comes into the scene, and they're both just kind of yelling at each other, and the refs kind of break them apart. The match itself, like, we're not going to get too much into it. It was... I would say it was as good as the one that they had at Clash of Champions. Zelina had control of the match initially. She even put Asuka in a submission hold. And then Tom Phillips said that she showed the ultimate disrespect by slapping Asuka in the face. And that was kind of to her demise because Asuka just unloaded with a bunch of hip attacks and a German suplex. And towards the end, Zelina does go for a moonsault from the top rope, but Asuka puts her knees up and she puts on the Asuka lock, and Zelina Vega taps.
You would think she would have learned that slapping Asuka was the ultimate disrespect the night before, but she didn't. And of course, there's those coming up short jokes because we didn't get enough of those with Shorty G back a few months ago, so we had to get those back in.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's very similar to what we saw last night. Nothing super exciting. There was a nice little roll-up sequence where Zelina looked like she might get a pin on Asuka, but then Asuka lock, and she taps out. And I think we go to commercial break and then come back, and Zelina hasn't quite left the ringside area, but Andrade's there, and he's basically not nice to anyone. He tells Zelina that she's nothing without him. She couldn't even beat Asuka. Even Angel is nothing without him, and he's also a weak link because he was injured last night. So I guess that does confirm that he was injured. And I guess the theme of tonight is open challenges because Andrade wants to have an open challenge. And I think the theme of open challenges is issue the open challenge, wait 3 seconds, nobody answers, and be like, okay, there's nobody, and move on. But because that's exactly what happens.
And then as you say, oh, there's no one, like, you hear
as you say,
a theme
no one,
song hits.
and you hear Keith Lee coming out, and we have our next match, which is Andrade versus Keith Lee, which I thought was a pretty solid match, although it was a little one-sided.
Well, I was going to say, so it's cool because, like, when Keith Lee's music hits, and I was like, oh, cool, we're going to get to see a battle between two former NXT championships. The match, though, was was very short. Like, it was decent, but yeah, you're right. Like, it did kind of feel one-sided. Like, Andrade was fired up and he was working on the left knee of Keith Lee, and you really saw like Andrade kind of going back to that left knee and kind of like, just kind of working on that. But Keith Lee's athleticism and his power, like, they were both in full force, and basically Andrade was kind of in control, and all of a sudden he picks him up, and Keith Lee just kind of snaps out of it. Then he picks him up for a Spirit Bomb and wins. It just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know Samoa Joe was excited about two former NXT champions duking it out, but it didn't really feel like two former champions. It kind of felt like Andrade got, the short end of the stick here, which is disappointing. I would have liked to see a more competitive match, but Keith Lee, of course, is continuing to be pushed very strongly, and he wins with a beautiful Spirit Bomb, because
fingers
Spirit
crossed,
Bomb is
man.
always exciting to see.
Yeah, so now we have a backstage segment with the Hurt Business. Earlier, before the show, they were in catering. This was a whatever segment, but essentially some random dude just kind of sits next to MVP and Shelton Benjamin, and then Lashley's kind of bothered by that. He's like, "Oh, you're sitting in my seat," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then he gets up and he sits on the other seat that was next to Shelton, and he's like, "Excuse me, you're still in my seat." And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
He needs 2 chairs.
Basically, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So he kind of goes away, and he's like, "Actually, you're taking my food with you," and he just kind of runs away, and that's it. That's the end of that segment.
Yeah, I wrote basically Bobby Lashley bullies a white guy in catering. That was kind of my summary of what that segment was.
Sure.
But we have another backstage segment featuring R-Truth, our 47th time, 41st, whatever it is, time 24/7 champion. He's playing chess with Little Jimmy. He gets a checkmate, which is pretty cool, I guess. I didn't know Little Jimmy played chess. There was a ninja or a Retribution member that showed up, right? Hands him a letter, but R-Truth can't read Japanese. But there's also an English translation there too, so very thoughtful of Tozawa, presumably, because apparently we haven't seen him since he was eaten by a shark. It's apparently his death note, because it says something like, "If you're reading this, because I was eaten by a shark."
Very specific.
I guess he's got several of these death notes that he had. All this leads to basically Tozawa has given R-Truth his black belt, and he's honored. But during this whole emotional thing, he gets rolled up by Tozawa, who was under the table that he was playing at the whole time, which was kind of bizarre. So we have a new champion. Drew Gulak shows up. We have a new champion. R-Truth is ready. We have a new champion. That's it.
I don't know. And then basically they announced that these 3 men are going to be facing in a triple threat match later on tonight. Before we go to the King's Court, we do see Murphy. He's backstage, and he's supposedly texting someone when he's greeted by Seth Rollins, who's all smiles. He gives him a hug. He's really excited to see his disciple tonight. And he's also really excited for King's Court because, the Mysterio family is invited, and I guess the whole debacle is going to continue. It's like a telenova, essentially, at this point. It's exactly like a telenova.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And he's like, "Why are you wearing your wrestling gear? You're not competing tonight. Put on your suit that I got you,
Yeah, essentially. And basically, he's like, "Yeah, go on, and you can put on your suit." And as Murphy leaves, he notices that Murphy's cell phone is still there. He picks it up, he smiles, and he puts it in his breast pocket. So we're going to jump in to King's Court. Jerry Lawler, he introduces the whole Mysterio family, and he wants to know what's going on with the whole family since last week. Rey Mysterio has a lot to say. He's kind of really pissed off at Seth Rollins for running his mouth, trying to ruin his family, because he and his wife have been really good parents. They've showed, really good values to their kids. And since his kids have been born, his kids have really been his life. And Jerry Lawler's like, "Well, listen, I mean, it's all great and all, but you did say that your daughter was naive and she knows nothing of this world," which kind of caused her to walk out, and getting approached by Murphy, of all people. And he asks Aaliyah, like, "How are you feeling?" And Aaliyah's like, "Listen, I'm still a little upset about what happened last week, about what my father said. As for Murphy, however, I didn't go looking for him. He came to me." So what she does know, however, is whoever associates themselves to Seth Rollins needs to reconsider their life decisions. They're just not good people. And this is where we see Seth Rollins. He's on the Titantron. He's laughing, and he's like, "Listen, I just want to share the truth with everyone." So he shows us this text message conversation, this DM conversation between Aaliyah and Buddy Murphy. And
Murphy slid into the DMs. Now, I don't think it's that big of a deal that Rey Mysterio calls his daughter naive and knows nothing of this world. Assuming he's referring to the world of professional wrestling, not the entire world. I don't know why she would be offended by that. Like, yeah, she probably doesn't know anything about wrestling. If she's not been watching. She's never been featured on TV, so it's not that big a deal. But yes, Murphy did kind of
Yeah,
go approach her.
but
He
but
slid into her DMs. So
but I'm just thinking, I'm like, she's 19 and he's 32. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just not buying this whole thing. Like, I did not enjoy this whole segment, and I'm kind of sick and tired of this story going on between Seth Rollins and the whole Mysterio family.
yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable for Buddy Murphy to like approach a 19-year-old. Yes, I agree with you. I mean, if this is like the kind of change Buddy Murphy's character to have him turn on Seth Rollins, I'm all for that storyline, but I'm questioning the method at which we're gonna get there. I don't want to see Buddy Murphy get tossed away and
Yeah.
become an afterthought.
So
But yeah,
Aaliyah does walk away saying that Murphy is not like Seth, and the whole family follows her backstage. And then we kind of cut to Murphy and Seth Rollins, who's Murphy's really upset. You know, they're mouthing off at each other. He kind of basically holds him by his collar. And as I guess he's about to attack Seth Rollins, Dominic comes in and he starts beating up Murphy, and they have to be broken off. So it seems that they're going to have a match. But we are introduced, well, we get to see Lana and Natalia. They're up next. And they're pissed because they want Shania to be stripped of their tag team titles. You know, that they should have those titles. Exactly. Don't you dare. You know, they are celebrities. They have millions of followers. And then Adam Pearce is like, listen, well, you know, I can't just strip them of their titles, but I do believe in teams earning opportunities. So how about you face this newest, I guess, the newest members of the Raw division? And then we see Mandy Rose, who's wearing similar gear to Trish Stratus, as she mentioned on her Twitter, and Dana Brooke. So it seems that Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke are a team. And this was a really good match. Like, I got to see like some really good chemistry between Dana and Mandy. But again, I'm not gonna kind of shove Natalia and Lana aside because they also did a really good job.
I mean, it's kind of weird that we did get hyped about Mandy coming to Raw, and then Dana Brooke also came with her. Nobody mentioned that, so we get that. Yeah, the match was all right. I mean, I think Lana took a pretty devastating, almost
Yeah, that was weird.
breaking injury from Mandy doing like a kind of like a German suplex, but not really. Like she flipped her back, and I guess Lana didn't jump high enough because she almost landed on her neck, which could have been pretty bad. But it was a good showcase for Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke showing off their skills and how they can actually potentially be a good tag team, because they did show off some good stuff. It wasn't a very long match. I don't remember it being super long. Well, Mandy Rose pick up the win with a nice knee strike, from what I remember.
Yeah, you are right. So we're going to jump into Aleister Black, who's in a dark room once again. He talks about Kevin Owens, how Kevin Owens, you know, he thrives in a system where he can manipulate the viewers. You know, he's like, well, you have a knack of betraying people. And, you know, he starts talking about family and how family is cruel, like how his father was a cruel man. And he kind of goes to Kevin Owens and he's like, well, have you talked to your son about your own betrayals? And that Aleister Black is not going to forget. And he kind of goes back and he fades to black, which I thought was a pretty cool thing to see. And we see the Street Profits. They're hanging out in the Legends room because, yes, the Legends are playing poker. They've been playing poker all night.
Yeah, I guess they got nothing better to do, but they're not even watching the show that they're a part of. They're playing poker.
Exactly.
Classic APA style.
So we're going to jump into Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black, who has a new entrance music, which I personally find it fits well with his heel persona.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with his new theme song, but his old theme song was
it's a classic.
So good.
Yeah, but again, it seems that they're removing every theme song that was done by CFO $.
Yeah, it looks like that's the case, which means none of your theme song music are safe. If you like some of the theme music, you're not safe. It's going to be gone. Who's left?
Kevin Owens?
The biggest... Well, Kevin, yeah, it's true. Do you think he's going to get new music? I mean, what happens to the Undisputed Era? That theme is fire. Like,
oh my god, no, that's I did not even realize that Undisputed Era, the music was written by CFO $. But who knows? It doesn't seem like everyone is affected, but it's I feel like it might be like a gradual thing. But if we kind of go back to this match, Owens kind of starts up the match. He's all fired up. He hits a senton, a German suplex, another senton onto the outside. After the break, however, it was all Aleister Black. He was about to go for a black mass, but then Kevin Owens reverses it with a super kick. And he was going to go for another senton, but Aleister Black, he put up his knees. He kept striking Kevin Owens, and the ref kept kind of trying to intervene, and Aleister Black didn't want to listen to him. And as he was striking Kevin Owens, he seemed to have accidentally hit the ref, and the referee just called the bell. And
he was furious. After that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was furious. He was like mouthing off at the ref, and Owens just kind of knocked him out. and Owens won by DQ.
Yeah. Now, can I just say, like, I really enjoyed Aleister Black in NXT, like, a lot. And I feel like WWE have managed to make me not care whatsoever about him. I don't know what it is. This heel turn is not doing it for me. I don't like what they're doing. I don't care about him. Like, I don't care about him. And I like the guy so much. It's honestly,
It's just
tragedy.
because he got kind of chumped out, you know, like after Seth Rollins or Murphy took out his eye, like I would have expected Aleister Black to kind of go in full force and kind of go after Seth Rollins. As we were saying, like, you know, we were thinking that maybe after Seth Rollins kind of leaves, you know, to go be a father, you know, maybe Aleister Black can kind of take over the whole Messiah thing. And that could have been a really, really strong storyline, but that didn't go that way. But again, yeah, I agree with you. I feel like he got a little chumped out, but you know, I kind of hold out the hope that maybe him and Kevin Owens can do something real special. We just haven't seen it yet. Like I feel like this match was fine, but it just didn't get to where I thought that it could have gone. But hey, like I said, like I'm gonna remain positive because again, it involves Kevin Owens, and I know that you know that these guys are going to deliver eventually. But we do get to see the Hurt Business. They're backstage. They're walking towards the I guess the Legends room, and Ali comes out and he tells him to get lost. And they don't take, you know, basically they didn't like the fact that Ali said that, so they kind of knock him out. But out come Apollo and Ricochet to protect them, and it seems like we're going to get a 6-man tag match player.
But they didn't like the fact that he was basically in their locker room. He wasn't in the dress. He wasn't in the Legends room. He was.
Oh, it's true. He was. Yeah.
Room,
like, what was he doing there?
Well, yeah, exactly. What was he doing there? But yeah, like you said, they're not too kind to they're not too kind to him about that, and it kind of makes sense. Like, wouldn't you be a bit freaked out if someone was in your locker room that
absolutely
share a locker room with you? So it's kind of like not really the most unjustified beatdown there.
Yeah. So next up, I'm just gonna blaze through this because I personally don't really care about this segment. We have the triple threat match. We have R-Truth versus Akira Tozawa versus Drew Gulak. Essentially, both Tozawa and Gulak, they work on R-Truth. And, you know, something happens in between them. They start arguing. R-Truth, to no surprise, since he is the resident 24/7 champion, is able to successfully defend his title, and he wins. That's it. I don't.
He wins with his childhood hero's signature move, the AA.
That's true. That's true.
Which is that's at least noteworthy.
So we're going to jump into Charlie Caruso backstage, and she welcomes Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Mandy talked about having her ups and downs on SmackDown, but Dana has been really incredible with her, just kind of helping her out, being a really good friend. And
athlete.
And she basically says that we know that the Riot Squad are next in line, but we're going to be watching, and we're coming for those titles. So it's nice to see that the women's division is getting more tag teams. Like I'm actually really looking forward to this pairing.
The Iconics died for this.
Basically. Oh, don't even remind me. So we do have Murphy versus Dominic. Essentially, the whole match, Dominic is really fired up. He's kind of showing this really like stubborn, insubordinate, aggressive side. He's basically throwing Murphy around, just being really physical. He reaches for the kendo stick, and Aaliyah comes in and she pleads him to stop. This causes a distraction, and Murphy rolls him up, and Murphy wins.
But doesn't escape the kendo stick, unfortunately. He does get hit by it, and then he runs away, and Aaliyah kind of stops Dominic in his tracks and like, don't hit him. He's not like Seth.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dominic says the same thing. He calls her naive, and then she's upset.
And she slaps him, and she walks off.
She slaps him quite hard.
So we're going to jump to the Hurt Business real quick. They're backstage. They're walking. They seem to be walking to the towards the ring. They take a water bottle and they just throw it at the janitor and they tell him to clean it up. And I'm like, come on, man. Like that's not nice. Like they're essential workers. Don't do that to them.
But this janitor plays in a very important role later on in this episode.
Oh yeah.
So like I think that's why they had to make us remember the janitor. Also, it has to be noted that Cedric Alexander has been nowhere to be found in any of these segments. And
I was going to say that, yeah.
We'll find out where he is very shortly. Well, like literally one segment after what we talk about next, which is what Dolph Ziggler shows up backstage with Adam Pearce. And Adam Pearce is like, well, you can't challenge Drew for the title, man. Like, stop. But he's like, no, I know somebody. Let's have a talk. And then they go have a talk.
Yep.
But about what, we don't know.
So we do have our 6-man tag. We have the Hurt Locker versus Mustafa Ali, Apollo Crews, and Ricochet. The whole story of the match was pretty much one face comes in, they kind of show a little bit of offense, then they get put down by the Hurt Business. They get a hot tag, someone comes in, they get put down by the Hurt Business. Then Ali comes in, and he kind of holds his own.
Yeah. So before the match actually starts, though, there is a promo from MVP, and he does mention that Cedric Alexander has made a mistake when he lost to Apollo Crews, and that's why he's at Hurt Business Boot Camp this week. And he's also saying that Apollo Crews keeps making the same mistakes over and over because he keeps trying to come after Lashley, but he's not successful. And the Hurt Business dominates the match until the lights flicker, and then they rush into the ring, and we see retribution signs everywhere. We go to commercial, and then we just forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, toward the end of the match, a lot of action happens on the outside, and Mustafa Ali is the legal man. He gets his tag in, he fights MVP, and he's able to beat him with a 450. So I guess MVP is going to Hurt Business Boot Camp too because he lost.
Oh yeah, so
Only makes sense.
we're going to jump in to the Legends room. They're still playing poker, but it seems that Ric Flair has cleaned them dry.
Royal flush he has.
There you go.
Christian doesn't know what 3 aces is because he has 3 jacks, which was just strange.
Yeah. So
and Ric Flair's just like wooing and styling and profiling all evening, I guess. We also get now another like video clip of Bianca Belair, who apparently is just better than you because she beats these 3 other people in a race, then decides to challenge them again and gives them quite a significant head start, but still beats them, and then decides to challenge them one last time by giving herself a disadvantage with a bunch of hurdle jumps that she has to go through, and still beats them. So yeah, she's the best.
She is. I mean, and again, like we got to see that she's the fastest, right? And I'm assuming that every single week, like, so we got strongest, we got fastest. So maybe next week we're gonna get to see another thing, maybe smartest or whatever. But we are going
I wonder how they're gonna film that. The smartest, is she gonna take a test or something?
Who knows? Like, and she just finishes the test in like 5 minutes or something like that, and everyone's freaking out or something.
And then she's like, "Professor, grade my test right now. Check, 100%. All right."
So we're going to jump.
We're giving them ideas here.
Oh god. So we have the open challenge. We have Drew McIntyre. He comes out. He's waiting for his competition, but we hear Dolph Ziggler's music, and I'm like, oh my god, no. But he's clearly
does the same thing. He's like, oh, I'm looking for my open challenger. He waits 3 seconds. Oh, no one. That's it. And then he's like, I'll talk to commentary, I guess. He's like, oh, how are you doing, Charles, to the ref? And then Ziggler's music hits.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought I said someone new, and then Ziggler does introduce someone new.
It's Bobby Roode.
Woo! I mean, glorious.
Booby Rude.
We're confusing Rude with Ric Flair there because they have the same robe. But this is an interesting rematch from NXT Takeover something because Drew McIntyre beat Bobby Roode for the NXT title.
Yes, I was gonna say that. And also, what I like though is that Bobby Roode did not look like a chump in this match.
This was amazing.
Starts off, yeah, it was an excellent match. He starts off working on Drew McIntyre's right leg just from the beginning. And let's not forget that his right leg was damaged in kayfabe because he missed the Claymore and he hit the ambulance door. Drew does fight back with some brutal-looking chops. He follows that up with a reverse Alabama slam on the outside. And they put up, like I said, a really, really good 10-minute match. And Robert Roode, I was so happy that he looked strong. We even see him at one point. He put a figure 4 onto Drew McIntyre, and I'm like, this is the NXT Bob Roode that was kind of wasted in the main roster when he was first called out. So I'm hoping that this is not just a one-time thing where we see Robert Roode look strong and then he kind of goes back to kind of nothingness. But Drew McIntyre kind of turned it around when he hit the Glasgow kick. Then he kind of went for a big boot to Robert Roode, but then Dolph Ziggler kind of came in and he protected him. So Dolph Ziggler got that big boot, and then Robert Roode took advantage and he hit him with a glorious DDT, but only got a 2 count. And eventually Drew McIntyre hits the Claymore for the win, and he's celebrating. But the show doesn't end there because we have one more segment.
I did enjoy one little piece of psychology in that match where early on, besides working the knee, Robert Roode also gives Drew the back rake, and they're talking about how Drew was basically sent through glass and he had all those cuts from the night before, which so just a little extra stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. One glorious DDT was not enough. The second one he could not hit because he got hit by the Claymore. And now we move to our final segment with the janitor. The janitor who I guess was disgruntled from having to pick up MVP's water bottle. Turns out he goes to the Legends locker room, takes off his mask, reveals himself to be Randy Orton, and he puts on night vision goggles. And I'm like, are you serious? He enters the room. Everyone's like watching him. He closes the lights. We hear a bunch of banging. He has a steel chair. Also, it was with him in the janitorial equipment because janitors use steel chairs. And then he turns the lights back on, takes off his night vision goggles, and we see the damage he's done. The whole room is a mess. Everyone's knocked out. And he slowly exits the room. He's walking back, puts his mask on, and this is the part that I just don't believe. Like the medical and the staff are rushing. He like points to the room, and then just keeps walking down. And I'm like, no one thinks that maybe the guy who just left the room might have had something to do with this. No.
And
Randy Orton walks away into the sunset with his janitorial rack,
and that's how Monday Night Raw ends. Like I said, a slog. Like it's kind of hard to find positives like throughout like these weird things, but again, we didn't get to see Raw Underground. We didn't see Retribution at all whatsoever. I'm happy to see Keith Lee kind of not being forgotten, and he got a decent match out of Andrade. I'm hoping that we get to see another match between them, something that's a little longer and not like a 5-minute match. I'm really happy to see Bobby Roode, to be honest with you. I feel like in this match he really showed us that he could be the NXT Bob Roode that we saw. And the one thing that I'm just absolutely not enjoying at this point is the whole Mysterio family telenova. I'm not digging it.
Yeah, I'm not digging it, Sucka. And to compare our two matches of former NXT champions, like you said, the Andrade Keith Lee was a bit disappointing and could have been way more competitive, but the Robert Roode Drew McIntyre one was very nice. It was my favorite match on the card. There wasn't anything super amazing tonight. There was rematches, 6-man tags where nothing really mattered. I guess Dominic Mysterio and Murphy was all right because you kind of got to see Dominic Mysterio become reckless and start making mistakes as the novice that he is, which is, I guess, interesting from that perspective.
That's a good point, yeah.
Storytelling wise, but like otherwise, I'm not. This episode of Raw was okay. It was fine. After the high of Clash of Champions, it's a kind of a letdown.
Absolutely.
Think about it like that.
So that was our recap for Monday Night Raw. Make sure to hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Find all the information in the description box below. And that's it, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
So Randy Orton got sent into an ambulance, comes back as a janitor, is the cleaner because he sweeps everything up, beats everybody up. Like, what is there something this man cannot do?